Hello. We ready? I'm not. I'm nervous. Oh dear, dear, dear. Oh, why is the stream so laggy? Hang on, let me change this. There we go. Hopefully it's not laggy your side. Or is it? Let me know. How we doing? How we doing? It is lagging. Oh no. I haven't done anything. Haven't changed anything. Why is it lagging? Why? Oh no. It says excellent connection. Hang on. Hang on. I have to change some bits around. Maybe if I do this? A lot of lag. Lagging. A lot of lag. Good. Good, 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 good. Might just have to stop and start again? Maybe? Not receiving enough video to maintain a smooth stream. Hang on. Give me better? Seems okay on Twitch. Good now? Good now. Whew. Frozen? Oh god. As if today is the day, right? How is my life like this? How am I this cursed? There we go. Hello, Sally. How's it going? Hello, Antonia. I can see some names in the chat I recognize. That's normally a good sign. Anyone else at the track? You're at the track and in the chat. You're a mad lad. Focus. Focus on the track in front of you. What's up with my hair as well? It's just no idea. Anyway, apologies for that slightly laggy start to the stream. We knew it was going to happen. We knew it was going to happen. If something's going to go wrong, it's going to be this weekend. Possibly like the biggest live stream we're ever going to do on the channel since its inception. And of course, it's going to go wrong. Don't worry. I'm not ready for this. I make it your job to make me ready. No worries. No worries at all. I will try my best to get you prepared, give you all of the ins and outs of this Grand Prix weekend. We are at the Yas Marina circuit. After all, another year has rolled around, another 24 Formula One Grand Prix. And we're back here for the finale. It's the first time in a long time, though, that the finale has meant more than just a possible Constructors' Championship, maybe like a 4th place in the Constructors' Championship, and often the teams just sort of looking at this weekend fighting for nothing. Like, it does feel like we're coming into a very... No! I've lost an S! Oh no! What does it say now? Cuderia. Cudia. I've lost an S. Oh, I just had it a second ago and now I've dropped it. I've lost the S. I'm no longer a Scuderia. This, like, is it going to focus on this? Definitely not. This jumper is just falling apart. Absolutely falling apart. Can we see this? Oh, I've lost an S. Rest in peace. It's gone. It's gone. We lost the R as well recently. I think it's just this whole thing is going to slowly come off as I wash it more and more often. Ah, dear, dear, dear. Anyway, we come into this final race of the season with some things up for grabs. Most importantly, the Drivers' Championship up for grabs. But there's also some other things, some other drivers will be fighting for, and also some Constructors' Championship positions, which are going to be very, very interesting to get hold of, and some changes to the driver lineups for next season as well. So we've got lots of news that has come out over the last week that we can delve into, and lots of things that we can chat about. First and foremost, final opportunity to get your predictions in. Is a tasty one. I'm almost inclined to show you what the predictions look like already. I know that I normally show you before the Grand Prix and not during qualifying, but it's tasty. It is tasty, and if you want to get involved, you want to get your predictions in before we get to the actual Grand Prix tomorrow, make sure that you get them in over on the posts tab. I think I put the post out on Tuesday this week, so I wanted to put out some other bits and pieces before we got to the posts for the predictions for the race. If you want to get them in, you need to predict your winner for the Grand Prix, who you think is going to be on the podium, second and third place. Your surprise, it's a good surprise, like who's going to have a good weekend that maybe you weren't expecting to, the best team of the weekend, the struggle driver of the weekend, and the flop team of the weekend as well. So head over to the post tab, get your predictions in. We'll get that earlier, and maybe, just maybe, I'll show you what the predictions look like before tomorrow, because I have updated them. I think they might change a little bit depending on qualifying as well, but we'll have to wait and see. I'll see if we get through everything else before we get to where we are going to talk about the predictions for tomorrow. Who is here after wondering? Lindblad won the F2 sprint. Oh, we can talk about Lindblad. We'll talk about, of course, the changes at Red Bull and RB, which were confirmed over the last week, and also the championship battle. Shall we start with the Drivers' Championship? Why not? Lando Norris leads it, 408 points. Max Verstappen, 396. Oscar Piastri, 392. 12 points the gap between Lando Norris and the closest competitor, now Max Verstappen. And also another 4 points down to Oscar Piastri, 392 points for him. I'm going mute sometimes. Oh my God. Is everything on this stream just going to absolutely melt itself? We're there. Let me try this. Let me turn that off, actually. Or maybe just decrease it a touch. There we go. We'll do that. Oh, everything's going wrong. But Lando Norris leading, 408 points to him. Verstappen, 396. So a 12-point swing required for Max Verstappen to win the championship. A 16-point swing required for Oscar Piastri to win the championship. And interestingly, all of the drivers come into this with 7 wins apiece. So also ridiculously close in terms of the wins that each of them have got over the course of the season. And it does mean if it goes to count back, then everyone will have the same number of wins, unless somebody wins this Grand Prix from that top 3. So Norris, Verstappen, Piastri, all of them on the same number of wins. Lando Norris, obviously the better overall second places. Third places has been on the podium more times than the other two, because he is leading the championship by 12 points to Verstappen and 16 points to Piastri. So that's where we stand with our top 3. George Russell, 309 points, has broken that 300-point barrier, which I think is actually a very solid achievement for George Russell, and has those 2 other victories, like the 21 victories split amongst the top 3. The other 2 coming in Canada and Vegas. Canada and Singapore, where George Russell was able to get those victories over the McLarens and the Red Bull of Max Verstappen. No victories for Ferrari this year. Charles Leclerc down 230 points. Lewis Hamilton, 152. And Lewis Hamilton with a big spin and crash at turn 9 during free practice 3. So might be a really awkward weekend to end what has been a really awkward year for the 7-time world champion and his first year with the Scuderia. I think, honestly, it's just one to forget, isn't it? If you're a Lewis Hamilton fan, just maybe go back and watch like the 2018 season. or the 2019 season over the winter break. Like, go back, watch the whole 24. No, it would have been 24 races back then, but watch the whole season of like 2018, 2019, and relive the good days if you're a Lewis Hamilton fan, because it is looking absolutely atrocious for this weekend once again. Kimi Antonelli, the man who replaced Lewis Hamilton and a rookie, only 2 points off Lewis Hamilton in the championship at the moment. Could easily swing in Kimi Antonelli's favor. And considering Kimi Antonelli had a pretty horrendous middle part to the season, that's actually a very, very solid end to the season for Kimi Antonelli. I know he inherited a few positions, like Vegas, where he inherited a podium, for instance. But you got to be there to get it, right? And you got to be able to deliver the performances to get those points on the board. Kimi Antonelli has done so. Then we have a double trouble Williams in 8th and 9th place. I was saying before, I think, Qatar, like it would be really nice for Williams if they could secure 8th and 9th place. Obviously, Alex Albon was going to get 8th place but Carlos Sainz picking up that podium in Qatar, almost guaranteeing himself a 9th place finish, unless Isaac Hadjar can also get himself a podium finish over the course of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix weekend, which isn't outside of the realms of possibility. We have actually seen Yuki Tsunoda, I think, finish 4th place here in Abu Dhabi in the past, and actually do very well here in Abu Dhabi for that second Red Bull team. So Isaac Hadjar might be able to get himself a podium, but that would also mean Carlos Sainz finishing outside of the points for Isaac Hadjar to inherit that 9th place in the standings once again. You could argue that Isaac Hadjar has maybe deserved that 9th place a little bit more in terms of consistency over the course of the season, but Carlos Sainz has been able to deliver, especially in this second half of the year, just a ridiculous level of performance, almost akin to Alex Albon's ridiculous level of performance at the beginning of the year. Does feel like those two drivers have had quite juxtaposing seasons, considering they're sitting 8th and 9th place. Alex Albon starting it on fire, where Carlos Sainz was struggling, and now Carlos Sainz, since the summer break, jumping into that hole that Alex Albon left. Alex Albon kind of struggling a little bit with the balance of the Williams car as the year has progressed, where Carlos Sainz clicking into gear, picking up those podiums, and absolutely flying in the second half of the season. I mean, you know, when he's picked up 2 podiums, having left Ferrari, and Lewis Hamilton has picked up 0 podiums for the Ferrari team this year, it's also like a nice thing that Carlos Sainz can talk about come the end of the 2025 campaign. Isaac Hadjar does drop to 10th place in the standings. Again, a top half finish in your rookie season in a midfield car when you're looking at Fernando Alonso, Nico Hülkenberg, Ollie Behrman, like Yuki Tsunoda underneath you, would be very, very impressive still from Isaac Hadjar. He's only a couple of points ahead of Nico Hülkenberg, though. Down to Fernando Alonso, another point on 48. A lot to battle there in the constructors that we'll talk about in a moment. Ollie Behrman on 41 points. Liam Lawson, who is sticking around, on 38 points. Yuki Tsunoda, who is not sticking around, on 33 in 15th place at the moment. Ocon and Stroll both on 32, Gasly 22 points, Bortoletto 19, and in 19th spot. Colapinto, the only driver still on the grid who has not yet scored a point. And of course, the obligatory nod to Jack Doohan, who did remember start this season, as much as it feels like a long time ago now. Into the Constructors' Championship before we delve into all of the news. McLaren have reached the 800-point margin. There was a point in the season, I think it was just before the summer break, I was discussing whether or not McLaren might reach 1,000 points. That has not happened, but they have managed to get 800 points on the board. And they could make that, 843 if this weekend goes absolutely perfectly for them. Mercedes 459 have now, all but guaranteed second place in the constructor standings. I can't imagine that getting overturned by Red Bull, considering the form that Yuki Tsunoda has been in recent weekends and the fact that they would need both of the Red Bull cars to deliver some points in some way. I don't know. It just can't really be the way, right, where Yuki Tsunoda, maybe he does. As I said, Yuki Tsunoda's actually been fairly decent in Abu Dhabi in the past. Maybe this is like the sign-off that Yuki Tsunoda needs. And then Ferrari have dropped to 4th place in the Constructors. Remember, they were fighting for the Constructors' Championship win here 12 months ago. How on earth has it gone from Ferrari fighting for the Constructors' Championship win to being behind Red Bull, who have one driver? Like, let's face it, Red Bull have one driver who has properly scored points. And I think Max Verstappen is above them. What, 396 for Verstappen? Yeah, Max Verstappen alone would still be above them. That is ridiculous, right? The fact that Ferrari have dropped so far in terms of their just general pace and overall ability to score points over the course of this year. Williams have consolidated 5th place in the constructor standings, which is brilliant for them. Like the money that comes along with that, and also the sponsorship opportunities that comes from being the best of the rest in the midfield. You know, obviously the huge sponsors that Formula One teams often try and pick up do go to those top teams, those bigger teams. But I think Williams will be able to pick up some really, really solid sponsors for 2026 because of their position. Obviously, they have got a title sponsor now as well. It's all looking up if you're Williams for 2026 and beyond. Racing Bulls then just behind. Their 12-point margin to Aston Martin, I feel like should be enough. Like if Aston Martin are scoring 12 points this weekend, they're having a brilliant weekend, but not yet done. Racing Bulls need those points, and we'll talk about Racing Bulls a little bit more in a second. Haas then 7 points behind Aston Martin. Again, 7 points for Haas would be a very, very good weekend. So not impossible. Like there's still constructors' places up for grabs, but for those constructors' places to move substantially, it would be a very, very good weekend for one team rather than another. And actually, then Stake Sauber down on 68 points. That 5-point margin to Haas, though, that's certainly doable. And when you think about the difference between an 8th and a 9th place being tens of millions of dollars, it's well worth still fighting for those Constructors' Championship places. I know people are like, well, they're not going to win the Constructors' Championship, so why bother? Every single place in the Constructors' Championship means more money for the team, and a substantial amount more money for the team. So dropping down there, Alpine, I think mathematically are now 10th place, right? They could get 43 points. 43 plus 22 is 60. Yeah, they're gone. They are gone. And unfortunately, Alpine cannot finish any higher than 10th place in the constructors' standings. Which do you want to talk about first then? The championship battle or the driver changes for 2026? Do we start with the driver changes for 2026 just because it's not quite as antagonistic maybe as... Oh, and I've forgotten to put my graphic on for 2026 campaign. Let me pop this. It is currently the LaSalle thing because I've forgotten to put the graphic that I got for the... Where's the graphic gone? Hello? Ah, it's there. Let me grab this. Put that there. Oh, it's massive. Okay. Here we are. A little bit of repositioning. Did I forget to do this beforehand? Yes. Should I have done it beforehand? Also, yes. But these are the places that we sit in. And shuffle across and make that the right size. There we are. And under. Oh, under. There we go. There we are. Here are the 2026 Formula One drivers. You'll notice a couple of changes that we maybe were expecting, but actually took a little while longer to get done than we were expecting. So when it comes to the McLaren team, keeping it the same. Ferrari the same. Mercedes the same. The biggest team to make a change, Red Bull. Isaac Hadjar, maybe the worst kept secret on the Formula One grid this season, considering how well, maybe didn't start the year, but certainly progressed throughout the season. Isaac Hadjar will be making the step up from the Racing Bulls team into the main Red Bull team for the 2026 campaign, which does mean Yuki Tsunoda has been replaced. We were debating, will Yuki Tsunoda make that drop back down to the second Red Bull team? You know, we saw Pierre Gasly, for instance. He was dropped out of the Red Bull team, made a step back down into the sister team. But no, Yuki Tsunoda will not be making that drop. He is out of the grid entirely. So Yuki Tsunoda still maintaining a spot with Red Bull, though. He will be racing He will be as a reserve driver for the Red Bull team for next season, in a similar mold to what happened to Alex Albon when Alex Albon was dropped out of the Red Bull team when he was alongside Max Verstappen all those years ago. He then went to sort of being a reserve driver, ended up racing in DTM for a little while. And actually, it doesn't mean you won't get back onto the Formula One grid. You know, Yuki Tsunoda has still got a chance to regain a spot somewhere in the future, but it's going to be a little bit harder for him. When it comes to the Racing Bulls team, we have got confirmation that Liam Lawson is there. And then finally, Arvid Lindblad, second in that RB seat. So Lawson keeping hold of his seat over Yuki Tsunoda, considering Lawson was dropped for Yuki Tsunoda earlier on in the season, maybe feels a little bit weird. But I'd imagine it's because of contract situations behind the scenes, the fact that Honda are moving on and Yuki Tsunoda is also still part of that Honda connection with Red Bull. It's a weird choice, but I think honestly they're just not bothered about who is alongside Arvid Lindblad. They wanted a spot for Arvid Lindblad. They wanted Max Verstappen to stay. They got Max Verstappen signed. They got Arvid Lindblad into a seat. And then it was kind of like, right, what do we do from there? And I think they just went, Isaac Hadjar comes up because he's been the best performing driver. Like if we look back at the Drivers' Championship board, Isaac Hadjar is the highest scoring of Lawson and Tsunoda and himself. So makes sense that he jumps up into that position. And then Liam Lawson is the second highest scoring driver, despite the fact that you have that position where, you know, Yuki Tsunoda's gone into the main team and struggled inside of the main team as well. So I think it's a bit of a weird choice that Liam Lawson stays, but he has outscored Yuki Tsunoda, even though he's in the second team. And then Lindblad coming in. Lindblad's an interesting one. Like, a lot of hype around him. Again, just sort of in terms of his Formula 2 campaign, hasn't completely smashed it. I think Formula 2... the standings are weird, right, when it comes to Formula 2, because actually, Fornaroli has won the Formula 2 championship, but is only going to go into a secondary driver role inside of McLaren. So is being linked there and sort of building up a possible testing role for him for the future. Maybe thinking about the fact that Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri, depending on how this weekend goes, don't want to stick around at McLaren for the future. Super chat coming in there. Thank you, Liz. Talking about the fact that Oscar Piastri maybe hasn't been treated the best throughout this season. And there are rumors going around that, you know, if Oscar Piastri doesn't win this championship, he could certainly have some fingers to point at certain races and some things that have not gone perfectly for him inside of a McLaren car, where maybe he looks for another team for the future. Maybe Fornaroli then steps up into the McLaren team alongside Lando Norris if he's still there, or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe Oscar Piastri wins this weekend. Lando Norris ends up being the driver that leaves McLaren in the near future, and then Fornaroli goes into that seat alongside Oscar Piastri. Like, they've kind of built up a little bit of a backlog there with Fornaroli, but we were talking about Arvid Lindblad, who currently sits sixth. Let me double check. Sixth in the Formula 2 Championship? Yeah, sixth in the Formula 2 Championship, 132 points. It's not been like an absolute vintage Formula 2 season from Arvid Lindblad. I'd say Alex Dunn has done better, who also just cut ties with McLaren. Like, if it was me, and maybe I'm a little bit biased in that Alex Dunn was with McLaren for a little while, I would probably go Alex over Lindblad. But then Lindblad's a little bit younger. You throw it up in the air. I think also you look at the fact that Ollie Behrman wasn't amazing in Formula 2 last season. Antonelli wasn't amazing in Formula 2 last season. Like, your position in the championship isn't as much of a factor as your connections with other teams. Like, Antonelli was a Mercedes junior. Even though he didn't win Formula 2 last year, he was always going to go into that Mercedes seat. Ollie Behrman, being a Ferrari junior, got those opportunities in Formula 1 to show that he was quality and has been brilliant in this second half of the season, Ollie Behrman, but also that connection with Ferrari was the thing that actually got him onto the Formula One grid. So it's almost kind of who you know, not what you know sometimes when it comes to Formula 2. And therefore, Arvid Lindblad is connected with the Red Bull team, has been connected with the Red Bull team for a little while. Can maybe say Iwasa has missed out a little bit there, but I think Lindblad looks better than Iwasa for the future. Lindblad goes into that second RB seat. And then we've kind of got the rest. Touched upon Ollie Behrman. He's staying with Esteban Ocon for Haas, obviously with an idea to maybe replace Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari in the future. Aston Martin are sticking with Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll, although Fernando Alonso has kind of hinted at the fact that 2026 will likely be his final season. So that will change around in 2026. I could see Alpine making a few changes come 2026 as well. Williams, I think, are locked in for the future, although I could see some team, looking at the Carlos Sainz and trying to pick him up once again. Audi have Hülkenberg and Bortoleto, and then finally Cadillac have got Bottas and Perez. I think, again, though, one of those might end up getting dropped with, his name has just completely escaped my mind. The guy from IndyCar coming over to Formula 2. He's coming in as a Cadillac junior, will probably take a Cadillac seat in the future. Somebody help me out. He's got curly hair. He drives Cadillac literally in IndyCar. He was linked to Red Bull a couple of seasons ago before Nick de Vries got the seat. Herter. Colton Herter is the name I'm looking for. Colton Herter coming into Formula 2 next year. If he can get the super license points, kind of depends on what happens with Bottas and Perez, right? But I could see either Bottas or Perez, whichever one isn't the best of the two, eventually getting replaced, and then maybe we have a Bottas Herter lineup or a Perez Herter lineup for the 2027 campaign. I was thinking about this the other day, actually. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, loads of Colton Herters coming into the chat. See how long that took me to just get to a name. Cotton Herter or so. But yeah, I think in terms of the 2026 driver lineups, they're kind of as we've expected to see them. Give or take maybe a couple of names shuffling. I don't know. I think everybody expected Lindblad to get a step up. Maybe we expected Tsunoda to be in that Racing Bull seat just because Liam Lawson was in the main Red Bull team at the time, and how that works out, you could kind of argue, but it's a pretty dull jump from 2025 to 2026. But that does mean that 2026 into 2027, I feel like could be a very, very exciting driver lineup. And in fact, I want to do a video where we kind of try and predict it very early and talk about who could be where in 2027, because I think one of the McLaren guys could move. I think Lewis Hamilton, depending on Ferrari, could end up leaving. Verstappen could certainly leave Red Bull, depending on their performance next year, whether that's to Mercedes and therefore shaking up the Russell-Antonelli partnership, or if it's to Aston Martin and shaping up the Alonso-Stroll partnership. I could see Alpine making changes, possibly if they end up selling their team in some way. Colapinto and Gasly, that driver lineup is not absolutely certain. We could see Behrman move to Ferrari. Ocon hasn't been amazing this year, so I could see Ocon kind of coming towards the end of his Formula One career. Lawson and Lindblad, does one of them make the jump up to the main Red Bull team? Williams, in terms of Albon and Sainz, will a bigger team look for those two drivers, like the experienced heads in the midfield, to maybe jump up? Because Albon and Sainz are still a little bit younger than some of those other drivers that you could maybe look at as like an Alonso or Hülkenberg that have also stood out in that midfield to be able to jump up into a big team once again. Hülkenberg and Bortoleto, as Hülkenberg coming towards the end of his career, he's getting on a little bit. And as I said, Bottas and Perez, which one of those two kind of makes way for Colton Herter? Because that feels like it has to be a move that Cadillac are thinking about for the future. Otherwise, Colton Herter would not have made that jump over to Formula 2. So, the 2027 driver lineups looking very exciting indeed. Bro, please talk about this. Just imagine after Abu Dhabi, a seven-time world champion, one of the best teams in history, is behind a rookie. I know. And that's why I'm saying Lewis Hamilton could leave the sport. I think Lewis Hamilton just doesn't have to contend with this. I know he's got another year with Ferrari already contracted. But at the end of 2026, if Ferrari is still nowhere to be seen and Hamilton still isn't happy inside of that car, I think he leaves I genuinely think at the end of the 2026 season, we'll see Lewis Hamilton retire from the sport. We'll see Fernando Alonso retire from the sport. We might even see like a Nico Hulkenberg come to the end of his sort of run in the sport, as well as Audi maybe try and build something a little bit different for the future. And then maybe Audi are able to pick up like a Piastri, maybe, or Piastri ends up going to Ferrari, or Piastri ends up going to Aston Martin. Maybe Max Verstappen moves. Like, I need to properly sit down and think about it. Jack Crawford to Cadillac as well. Yeah, Crawford. Where was he? Second in Formula 2 this season, Jack Crawford. So, but he's been there a little while is the problem as well. You have that curse of like, if you've been in Formula 2 for like 2 or 3 campaigns, 3 campaigns usually, you know, you look at like Felipe Drugovich or Teo Pourchaire, even if you win it because you've been there longer than everybody else, it kind of means less. So Jack Crawford's in kind of an awkward situation there moving forwards, isn't he? He's got to try and find a spot for himself that is slightly different compared to the rest of the drivers on that Formula 2 grid. But I don't know. I feel like the 2027 grid could be a lot more exciting than the 2026 grid. Oh, not more exciting. The 2026 grid is good. Like, we've got a lot of really solid drivers in there and lots of very exciting storylines. But in terms of like the switches from 25 to 26, then we're going into like 26 into 27. Kelly, I'm verging on writing fan fiction. That's true, though, but that's the exciting thing about the driver lineups. It seems like fan fiction, but then Lewis Hamilton does actually go to Ferrari and everything drops into chaos. Like, it can happen. It can happen. Right. That is the driver lineups. Let's move on. I think I've had enough. Who do I support? Who do I want to be champion this year? Great question. Shall we talk about it? And shall we talk about the different orientations in which this championship battle can go? I found this lovely little breakdown of it made on Excel. Oh, I forgot to write down where I got it. I got it from Reddit, but I can't remember the user. I'm sorry. Sorry if you're the user that I stole this from. But this is how the championship can go, the various different ways in which the championship can be won by Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, and Oscar Piastri, and what they need to think about going into qualifying and also into the Grand Prix tomorrow. McLaren fans jump into either Audi or Cadillac. I mean, depending on where, I feel like Oscar Piastri could honestly end up pretty much anywhere, depending on who's offering good contracts at the time and what his 2026 season looks like, because he's shown he can do it, right? He's only in his 3rd season in the sport, and he's still going into the final race of the season, possibly being a world championship contender, which does then also beg the question, like, Piastri is clearly unhappy at McLaren, and just the way that this second half of the season has gone. Even if he wins the championship, does he still decide to just move somewhere else? Like, I can see Oscar Piastri just being like, look, I know I won the championship here, but 2026 is a completely new thing. Maybe he sees out the 2026 season, and then for 2027, if McLaren aren't one of the top teams going into the next regulation cycle, I could see him moving away, right, and just doing something else, trying a different team. He doesn't really have the same affinity to McLaren that Lando Norris does. You know, Lando Norris been there a lot longer. Teams kind of constructed around Lando Norris. He's been there for so long since Zach Brown sort of came in and readjusted. Like, he's been there longer than Andrea Stella. He's been there longer than a lot of the mechanics. Like, Lando Norris is really part of that McLaren setup, where Oscar Piastri isn't. So I can understand, firstly, why the title has maybe gone in this way, and secondly, why the title is being benefited towards Lando Norris, if that's the right words to use. Probably not. I could see it being a thing for Oscar Piastri next year, but he can still win the championship. Let's run down the ways in which it can happen. Lando Norris, leading the championship, 408 points, has the easiest task: finish inside of the top 3. And considering he's finished inside of the top 3 a lot this season, you would hope that Lando Norris can get that done. Like, it should be a fairly comfortable Lando Norris championship victory, because finishing inside of the top 3 at a track that McLaren are very good at, a track where he won last year, and a season where the McLaren car has been the quickest. Look at the Constructors' Championship. Like, it has been absolutely dominated by McLaren this year. Should be able to finish inside of the top 3. But if he doesn't, he then opens the door to Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri in slightly different ways. If he finishes in 4th or 5th place, Oscar Piastri still cannot win the championship. Oscar Piastri needs Lando Norris to finish 6th or lower to still win the championship, whereas Max Verstappen can win the championship with Lando Norris in P4, P5, or P6, or even P7, actually, if he wins the race. So Max Verstappen needs to win the race, and Lando Norris to be 4th or lower, where Oscar Piastri can be obviously anywhere you like. If Max Verstappen comes 2nd in this Grand Prix, he needs to have Lando Norris P8 or lower, and Oscar Piastri to not win the race ahead of him. And similarly, if Max Verstappen comes in P3, he needs Lando Norris to be P9, and again, Oscar Piastri to not win the race in front of him. So Max Verstappen kind of needs P4 really for Lando Norris. He needs to win the race and he needs to come P4. I don't think Lando Norris is going to drop all the way down to P8 or even P9 without some kind of craziness, whether that be like a really late safety car, a red flag, like something ridiculous, like contact between 2 drivers, including Lando Norris in some way. Like, I can't see Lando Norris dropping to P8 or P9. So for Max Verstappen, he needs to win the Grand Prix, therefore beating Oscar, and also needs Lando Norris to be down in P4. I don't think that's impossible to happen. Then when it comes to Oscar Piastri, it is a more difficult task for Oscar Piastri. He does need Lando Norris to finish... Sorry, he needs to win the race, and then Lando Norris to finish P6. Obviously, he's beating Max Verstappen there, so Max Verstappen can finish anywhere you like. Or if... Oscar Piastri comes 2nd in the Grand Prix, he needs Lando Norris to be all the way down in P10, and for Max Verstappen to be P4 or lower as well. So Lando Norris is looking good. You know, if you are Lando Norris, you're coming into it, you're leading the championship, it's looking fairly decent. If you're Max Verstappen, you need to get yourself inside of that top 3, realistically win the race. And if you're Oscar Piastri, again, you need to get yourself inside of that top 2, realistically win the race for any kind of hope of winning the championship. It's not impossible, though. You know, we remember back to 2010 when... What was it? Sebastian Vettel was behind Fernando Alonso. Sebastian Vettel had not led the championship at all throughout the 2010 season, which is exactly the same as Max Verstappen has not led the championship at all throughout this 2025 campaign. So therefore, it has been done. It was a Red Bull before. Could be a Red Bull again. So you're saying that there's a possibility of Piastri getting the win? Oh, most certainly. There's most certainly a possibility, but it's a slim possibility, unfortunately, for Oscar Piastri, because Lando needs to be down in P6, which means, like, both of the Mercedes cars, or, like, one of the Mercedes and one of the Ferraris needs to be absolutely flying, and therefore... Or even like a Williams needs to be like absolutely flying, and therefore Lando Norris is dropping behind a Ferrari, a Mercedes, a Williams, like a combination of those two, right? Because P6, you got, say, Piastri or Verstappen ahead. You then need like both Mercedes or Mercedes and Ferrari or Williams. Like, you need some combination of midfieldy cars or lower top end cars to be ahead of Lando Norris for Lando Norris to finish in P6. And it's been pretty, you know, Lando Norris has been pretty consistent over the course of the year. We're looking at like what happened in Baku, for instance, happening to Lando Norris again. So I can't see a Baku kind of weekend happening here in Abu Dhabi for Lando Norris. But never say never. Maybe he qualifies really badly. Maybe this afternoon goes terribly. And we end up with a championship that looks very different to what we were expecting. I did ask you guys over on the community tab earlier on in the weekend. Can I share that with you? Trying to. Let's do that. Nope. That. Yes. I asked you guys earlier on in the weekend, or earlier on in the week, who did you think would win the championship? This was what the votes looked like. Over 109,000 votes from you guys. Lando Norris had a 33% vote rate. Max Verstappen, 12 points adrift, had a 60% vote. And Piastri, 16 points adrift, only had a 7% chance of winning the championship. This is your guys' thoughts and feelings in terms of what are the chances of each of these drivers winning the championship. You guys think Max Verstappen has 60% chance of winning the championship this weekend. 60% chance. That feels very, very high to me. But there is probably also a lot of Max Verstappen hype because he's won the last couple of races. McLaren have shot themselves in the foot twice. You know, you look at the last 2 Grand Prix, it's a disqualification for McLaren. And also followed up by the worst strategy call that we have seen in a very long time for the 2 McLaren cars as well. So, like, I can understand the hype behind Max Verstappen, but surely McLaren can't shoot themselves in the foot 3 races in a row. That just seems insane. Like, getting disqualified again in Abu Dhabi or messing up the strategy again in Abu Dhabi. Surely not. Like, it's absolutely insane that this could happen. His P4 in Qatar, paid with P2 in Vegas, would have won the World Drivers' Championship. In fact, if Lando Norris hadn't DNF'd in the Netherlands and then also had not been disqualified in Vegas, he would have won the championship in Vegas. So Lando Norris could have already won the championship a couple of times over. Like, he could have won the championship in Vegas had he not been disqualified. He could have won the championship in Qatar, also without that DNF, without a disqualification, one or the other. Could have won the championship in Qatar. So Lando Norris could have won the championship in both of the last 2 race weekends, but not been able to do so, as Max Verstappen kind of closed the gap in both of those weekends to the top of the standings. So this is how you guys saw it. The mentality monster is Max Verstappen, 12 points behind, got 60% of the vote. Also asked you guys to get your predictions in, which we might share in a moment, as we're 15 minutes away from the start of qualifying. Then there was the news between all the Red Bull nonsense that we talked about. And finally, I wanted to talk about this before we get into qualifying, because I think we could see this kind of scenario post-qualifying today. Final lap of the Grand Prix. Picture this. We're in Abu Dhabi, where we are right now. Final lap of the Grand Prix. Max Verstappen is winning the race, which he needs to do to win the championship, as we just mentioned. Oscar Piastri is sitting in 2nd place, or even 3rd. Kind of 2nd and 3rd are interchangeable there for Oscar Piastri. Anyone else sitting P3? Slot in George Russell, most likely to be him, isn't it? Because George Russell's won a couple of races this year. Likely that George Russell might be in and amongst the top 4 in terms of this race. So P3 is the final lap and the final podium place for George Russell confirmed. He's sitting comfortably in P3. Lando Norris sitting P4. And say there's a little bit of a gap between them, because a couple of people in the comments were like, well, what if Oscar Piastri could overtake Max Verstappen for the win? No, unlikely. Max Verstappen is leading the race by 5 seconds. Piastri is in 2nd place. George Russell's then behind him by a couple of seconds in 3rd. And Lando Norris is then even further back, maybe like 4 or 5 seconds back to P4, Lando Norris there. First and foremost, we now have an answer to this first question. Do you think that McLaren will tell Oscar to slow down and give Lando the title? We know that that is a yes now, because Zach Brown has come out and Zach Brown has said, if it is the championship on the line and team orders need to be given, we will give team orders. So Zach Brown and Andrea Stella have kind of set their stall out in terms of that, in the fact that they will, on the radio, Oscar, mate, sorry, we know that you're looking at a podium place here. We'll give you Lando Norris's P3 trophy, drop down so that we can have that world championship. And it makes sense. Like, the team, Oscar Piastri is still part of the team. And obviously, if Lando finishes third, he wins the championship for McLaren. Yes, for himself also, but doubling up the driver and constructors championship for the team makes sense for Oscar Piastri to maybe think about that, especially because let's say Lando Norris is P4 and then P5, P6 is absolutely no chance of happening. So like Piastri is out of the championship with the final lap of the race. Like certainly could happen. McLaren will get on the radio. McLaren will ask Oscar to slow down. Does Oscar do it? That's my question to you. It's not whether or not McLaren want him to. Of course, McLaren want him to, and they'll try and make it happen. Does Oscar slow down, or does he choose to ignore the team orders? And again, you got to think about the implications. As Wideman has just said, thinking about 2026 and beyond, is Oscar Piastri going to be at McLaren for 2027, though, you know? Okay, it might affect his 2026 season, but he's probably got some suitors that would take him on for 2027, especially if there's some big changes at the top of the grid. Oscar will do it? Nope. Burned him all at the back end of the season? True. Cannot imagine Piastri would be happy in the situation. He helped out Norris. That's true, he helped out Norris in Monza, so he did give up that position then. That would be a 3-point swing now. He's not slowing down. He definitely would. See, this is the thing. It's very, very conflicting, I feel like this. Like, as a McLaren fan, would I like to see a McLaren world champion? Of course. And therefore, I'd hope that Oscar Piastri would do it for the team. But if I was Oscar Piastri and the way that he's been treated and, you know, the incidents that have happened over the course of this final part of the season, I don't think it's an absolute guarantee that he would give up those. First of all, give up a podium. Piastri's got to drop outside of the podium places. He's got to drop down 2 positions. And he's also got to hand his teammate the world title. Would he prefer Max Verstappen to be a 5-time champion? You know, Max Verstappen being a 5-time champion versus your teammate winning a championship over you also has an effect on Oscar Piastri's thoughts process there. Please, Norris finish P4, Max P1. How much is he slowing down? I reckon that, like, there's a couple of seconds. 4 seconds. Okay, you think 4 seconds is the thing? I think if he doesn't, it'll mess up his relationship with the team, status on the driver market. People are going to see him as giving a championship away from the team. Very true, yeah. But I think other teams will see that as like a, you know, him backing himself, you know. But as, yeah, you could argue, you know, he's not being a team player there. And other teams might see it as like a, well, you weren't a team player in this scenario. Maybe you wouldn't be a team player in a similar scenario with us. But 67% of you, so 2/3 of people said no, he would not slow down, and Max Verstappen would end up being the 2025 world champion. 33% of you said yes, and that would imply that you think Piastri would give up those positions and allow Lando Norris to win the world championship. I don't know why I put a question mark there. I think that was a little typo. World champion? He would be world champion if he comes 3rd place. Last lap, 1 Max, 2 anyone, 3 Oscar, 4 Lando. Will Oscar switch? Now the poll makes sense. I mean, it's interchangeable, right? As I said, Piastri and P3 doesn't really make that much of a difference. And the only difference here is, I guess, Piastri, if he's close enough to Verstappen where he might win the race, then that sort of rolls into the fact that Lando Norris might have an engine problem or something, you know? Or Lando Norris messes up on the final lap. Like we saw Lewis Hamilton crash at turn 9. What if on the final lap of the race, Lando Norris crashes at turn 9, and actually Piastri wins the race, and then Piastri is the world champion? So, like, if Piastri is in this position, it's actually more, there's more at jeopardy for him slowing down than if Piastri was in this position. If Piastri's P3, it's more of a problem, I guess, for Piastri. If Piastri's P2, there's still an opportunity, even with only one lap left to go, there's still an opportunity he can win the championship from this place. If Verstappen messes up and then Norris DNFs or something, then Piastri might still be able to win the championship from P2. I'm speaking a lot of things out into the universe. I'm just trying to go through every possibility, Sarah. I'm just trying to go through every possibility. I think Norris should win on merit, not with his team. So that's the other thing. Like, if you're Lando Norris, do you even want that? Do you want to be remembered as a champion who was handed it by the team? Like, it would be... The problem is, if Lando Norris won the championship in that way, he would be criticized for it forever. Like, people would never live that down, right? They would always talk about how Lando Norris won the championship, but... And it would have this caveat of, but he did win it because Oscar Piastri handed it to him. And actually, Max Verstappen should be a 5-time world champion. It's a little bit like the debate around, it's not quite the same, but around 2021, where it's like a lot of people still see Lewis Hamilton as an 8-time world champion because of that. Oops. See him as an 8-time world champion because of that, rather than Lando Norris actually getting that podium position, if you know, or rather than Max Verstappen being a 4-time world champion. Better to have the championship with help of a teammate rather than the FIA breaking the rule. Well, yeah, that's the other thing, Antonio. That's why I sort of nearly held back on saying that, but you know what I meant. You know what I meant. Anyhow, oh, there is the stream. Let's round out because we've only got 5 minutes left. Wow, that went very quickly. Did we talk about everything? Red Bull driver swap, 2026 drivers, championship battle. Yeah, I think so. I think we went for everything. Maybe we might have missed some things, but we are only 7 minutes away from the start of qualifying. If you are new to the channel, if you could hit that subscribe button, that'd be absolutely amazing. Trying to hit 150,000 subscribers before the end of the season, and we are right on the cusp of it. We are like 1,000 subscribers away. We're on 148,500 last time I checked. So we are 1,500, less than 1,500 subscribers away. So this weekend could be massive. We could do it literally tomorrow during the live stream. I've got a couple of videos that I was hoping to get out yesterday, and actually are going to come out today because I was ill yesterday. So they are coming up. But if you could subscribe right now, we could get even closer to that final goal of 150,000 subscribers before the end of the season. Also, if you're over on Twitch, we're trying to hit 750 followers on Twitch. Last time I checked, we were on 738, 739, something like that. Considering we only started doing the Twitch live streams earlier on in the season. Also, if you've got a Twitch Prime, if you have Prime Video or you use Amazon Prime, but you're not really a Twitch person, just head over to Twitch this once. Use your Twitch Prime. It's completely and utterly free, and all it does is take $5 out of Jeff Bezos' pocket and put it in my pocket. Like, completely free if you've got Amazon Prime already. You get 1 free subscription to any Twitch user. I don't understand why that wouldn't be me, you know, especially considering the end of the season is nigh. And we're now up to 740 followers on Twitch. Congratulations on 150k subs in advance for next year. No, not next year, Wideman. We're going to do it this weekend. We just need 1,000 more subscribers over the next 24 hours. That is not impossible. It's going to be almost impossible, but it's not impossible. It's almost impossible. Lando world champion this weekend? Could be. Right, final thing then. Hard compound tire C3, medium compound tire C4, soft compound tire C5. Looking like a one-stop race. Maybe a two-stop if it really kind of goes and the tires play a little bit differently than we're expecting. Has been resurfaced a little bit of the track. I think turn 1 through to turn 3 has been resurfaced this year, so could be a little bit more abrasive than we're expecting. But the problem is we also have the F2 cars coming around and like lots of rubber being laid down. So I think it will end up being a one-stop race. I'd like it. No, I wouldn't. I think it would be more exciting if it was a two-stop race, but a one-stop race will probably do for the majority of these cars, considering how good they've been on their tires over the course of the year so far. Like, if only they'd have put in like some kind of lap mandate like they did in Qatar, then it would really spice it up. But as it stands, that is what it is. And a little round out for those of us finally joining as we are 3 minutes away from the start of qualifying. Lando Norris wins this championship if he finishes anywhere inside of the top 3. Max Verstappen needs to basically win the Grand Prix and have Lando Norris P4. Oscar Piastri needs to win the Grand Prix and have Lando Norris P6 is how the different championship variations run. Of course, Max can still technically win the championship from P2 or P3 come race day, but very unlikely. And same for Oscar Piastri. Can still technically win the championship if he finishes P2, but needs Lando Norris and Max Verstappen to both have an absolute nightmare weekend, which is unlikely to happen overall. Let's move over to the slightly more intellectual board. In fact, let me just load up this in the background. Bada bing, bada boom. There we are. Live timings not yet available. Track limits and investigations we'll keep an eye on as well. And the Abu Dhabi Yas Marina circuit ahead of us. 3 qualifying sessions to come. Q1 will lose the 5 slowest drivers of the weekend. Q2, another 5. And then Q3, our top 10 shootout between the championship rivals Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, and Oscar Piastri, who will have the advantage going into tomorrow's Grand Prix. Yuki Tsunoda will unleash himself. I mean, releases in a Yuji Ide. I missed the second half of that sentence. How much time till start? Literally a minute. We have got cars in the garages, drivers in their seats. We have got 20 drivers ready and raring to go. Free practice 3 was an interesting one. There was a red flag due to Lewis Hamilton losing control of his Ferrari into the barriers at turn 9. And it's kind of interchanged, really. Obviously, FP1 was a lot of rookies. We didn't talk about FP1. We saw 9 different rookies take to the track. Oscar Piastri did lose out on the fact that he did not take part in free practice 1. He gave up that seat to Pato O'Ward, the Mexican coming in for his second free practice 1 session of the season. Was also took Lando Norris's place in Mexico. But Pato O'Ward coming in there to replace Oscar Piastri. So Piastri has had 60 minutes less than Lando Norris and Max Verstappen inside of the car. Also, then that red flag in free practice 3 playing against him there. So it'll be interesting to see what Oscar Piastri's pace is like. And then, as you can see from FP3, George Russell was actually the quickest, then Lando Norris, and then Max Verstappen, 3rd fastest. Verstappen has kind of not looked 100% yet either this weekend. Although we know he kind of delivers when it gets to qualifying and steps up a gear, where sometimes we've seen Lando Norris just come a little bit unstuck when it comes to qualifying, especially Q3 and that final lap that is required from him. Sometimes been something that's lacking from the repertoire of Lando Norris throughout his Formula One career. But we do have a green light being waved and a Pierre Gasly-shaped Alpine coming down the hill underneath the track. It's a little bit of a weird one here in Abu Dhabi. The pit entrance is just on the inside of turn 16, but then the pit exit comes out at turn 3, and you'll say, well, hang on, turn 16, if it's on the inside, it's on the right-hand side of the track. Then if it comes out at turn 3, it's on the left-hand side of the track. And you're quite right, because they actually have to go underneath the circuit where turn 1 is. They go underneath the circuit, they kind of run alongside the cars down towards turn 2, and then as the cars on track come through turn 2, they meet the exit of the pit lane on the entrance to turn 3. So it actually goes underneath the track, which has always scared me, because surely if someone makes a mistake on the pit exit and smashes into the wall there, It just completely ruins any opportunity for anybody to come into the pits. Like, that has to be like an instant red flag. I suppose it would be other places as well, but I don't know. The tunnel underneath the track has always scared me a little bit when it's come to the Abu Dhabi circuit. There is Lando Norris, our championship leader, still inside of the garage. His best qualifying, of course, was a first place here last year, won from pole position. Max Verstappen has also won here from pole position. Oscar Piastri's only ever started a race in second place here at Abu Dhabi. It's his best qualifying. It was second place. Just shuffle this around a little bit before we get into qualifying full. Pierre Gasly is going to be the first driver to set a flying lap time. Lewis Hamilton on the medium compound of tyre. Pierre Gasly also on the medium compound of tyre as well. Interesting choices from them. Maybe decided to go for another run on the soft compound tyre during free practice and therefore don't have quite as many soft compound tyres they'd like going into qualifying. Or maybe they want a slightly scrubbed set of mediums going into the Grand Prix tomorrow so that they'll last that little bit longer, having had a warm-up cycle already put through them. But that is where we stand. Lewis Hamilton, fastest of anybody through the first sector. Gasly, Colapinto, and Lawson ahead of him. But that first sector time has just been taken by Lance Stroll, who's now the fastest man to have completed the first sector of the 5 drivers currently on flying laps. Hulkenberg behind, 17.219 for Hulkenberg, and Bortoleto also out on the circuit. So 7 drivers currently making their way around the Yas Marina circuit. And Lance Stroll, the quickest of all 7 through the first sector. Here comes Pierre Gasly to set the standard at a 124.729. Should be comfortably beaten as the session continues to roll. Lance Stroll quicker than the 5 drivers ahead of him again in the second sector. So Lance Stroll currently looking like he's going to jump to the top of the timing sheets and displace Franco Colapinto, who goes 2.5 tenths quicker than his teammate. Liam Lawson has decided to peel into the pits, so the RB car not setting a fast lap time. Here comes Lewis Hamilton to go top for now. Is a little bit quicker. Franco Colapinto actually getting that lap time deleted for a track limits violation. But here comes Lance Stroll to break us into the 123. So 123.772. The Aston Martin, the fastest man at the moment. Nico Hulkenberg was quicker than him through the middle sector, though. And Hulkenberg quicker than him overall. Goes 0.3 tenths of a second faster in the Stake Sauber car. And then Gabriel Bortoleto can only go second fastest to his teammate, a couple attempts off Nico Hulkenberg. So they are the 5 drivers that have set flying lap times. Liam Lawson decided against it, and Franco Colapinto's being deleted. Max Verstappen and Yuki Tsunoda are actually just making their way down towards turn 9. Gasly and Colapinto getting out of the way of the Red Bull duo. Lando Norris, our current championship leader, making his way around turn 3. So the big boys are coming. Hulkenberg has set it at a 123.4 for now. I can see Russell, Norris, Piastri, Verstappen all coming out on track, likely to make that time drop pretty significantly. Max Verstappen slowing himself down around turn 14. Yuki Tsunoda actually sitting right behind his teammate, just giving themselves a little bit of space. Isaac Hadjar, the other Red Bull powered car, also just crawling around turn 12 and 13 to give Yuki Tsunoda a little bit of leeway ahead of him. Turn 1 is so crowded. That's just the exit of the pit lane. Yeah, so Max Verstappen then through the first sector he comes, and it is purple. He's a 1/10.5 quicker than Nico Hulkenberg through the first part of the lap. Yuki Tsunoda also through the first part of the lap, a 17.1 from Tsunoda. So looking good for both of the Red Bull cars through that first part of the lap. Max Verstappen now making his way down towards turn 6. Actually has to move past Oscar Piastri, who moves across to the left-hand side of the track to let Max Verstappen by. Verstappen then has that DRS open once again, chasing his way down towards turn 9. Let's keep an eye on this second sector time from Verstappen. Goes purple once more, though that first sector has just been taken by Carlos Sainz, the Williams car fastest through the first part of the lap. And Yuki Tsunoda actually quicker than his teammate through the middle sector as well. So Tsunoda looking very strong in the second Red Bull car. Verstappen now comes around the twisty turn 12, 13, 14, around the final couple of corners. Let's see where Max Verstappen puts his lap time. Is going to go to the top, but by how much? It's a tenth and a half quicker than Nico Hülkenberg, 123.325. Yuki Tsunoda only goes third fastest. It was looking very good for Yuki Tsunoda up until that final sector. Isaac Hadjar actually goes quicker than Yuki Tsunoda, goes third fastest. And Oscar Piastri now starts his flying lap. Yuki Tsunoda quickest in the middle sector of anybody. Lando Norris now comes through that middle sector and cannot beat it. So Lando Norris not looking anywhere close to the pace of Max Verstappen at the moment. If you're a Red Bull fan, you'll be licking your lips at that. Lando Norris, Sector 1 and Sector 2, adrift of the Red Bull-powered cars. Ollie Behrman has just become the fastest man through the first part of the lap, though. Ollie Behrman actually still a tenth of a second up on Max Verstappen as he completes the middle part of the lap. George Russell has just gone quickest of anybody. George Russell could be the party spoiler here for all three of the championship rivals. We've seen Russell pick up 2 victories throughout the 2025 campaign. A third victory would really mix up the championship battle. George Russell, actually, you think about that win in Canada and the win in Singapore. If they'd have both gone to Max Verstappen, then Verstappen would have 14 more points on the board. A lot of people talking about Kimi Antonelli wiping out Max Verstappen in Austria, or Kimi Antonelli giving those 2 points to Verstappen. To Norris last time out. But actually, it's George Russell who's ruined the season for Max Verstappen. George Russell hadn't have won those 2 Grand Prix, as Oscar Piastri goes a thousandth of a second slower than Ollie Behrman. If George Russell hadn't won those 2 Grand Prix, then actually Max Verstappen would be leading the championship right now. And also, if George Russell hadn't antagonized Max Verstappen in Spain, he would be a lot closer to the top of the standings as well. As George Russell comes across the line, does go quickest of anybody so far, and is 7 thousandths of a second quicker than Ollie Behrman, 8 thousandths of a second quicker than Piastri. So that top 3 within 100th of a second of one another. Verstappen drops down to 4th place. All the rookies are leading for pole. I mean, not quite, but they're getting close. Lewis Hamilton comes across the line again, 5th fastest for Lewis Hamilton. So we do have Albon, Leclerc, Ocon, and Gasly down in that bottom 5 as Lance Stroll shuffles himself up. Franco Colapinto yet to set a full flying lap time. Here he comes, and only goes 18th fastest, does the Alpine car. So both the Alpines are down there. Charles Leclerc in a Ferrari as well. And then Ocon and Albon, not normally Albon, dropping out in a Q3. Hasn't been a consistent... And Colapinto, second lap time deleted for Franco. So Franco Colapinto now down in 20th place once again. He's only going to really have one more shot at it, is Franco Colapinto. Piastri, Antonelli just making their way around the final sector. It is Russell quickest from Behrman and Piastri in 2nd and 3rd. The top 3 all within 100th of a second of one another. Max Verstappen then down in 4th place within a 10th of a second of George Russell. Hamilton 5th, Alonso 6th, Norris 7th, Lawson 8th, Hülkenberg 9th, and Kimi Antonelli in 10th spot. Of course, the 5 drivers we're really looking at, though, Esteban Ocon, Alex Albon, Charles Leclerc, Pierre Gasly, and Franco Colapinto, the drivers that desperately need to improve their lap time. Bortoleto and Tsunoda, kind of the 2 drivers most at risk at the moment. George Russell at 123.247. As I said, could easily be the party pooper here this weekend as we look for a real battle at the top between Piastri, Verstappen, and Lando Norris. George Russell could actually be the driver that maybe just goes to an easy victory inside of the Mercedes car and ends up sort of just winning the championship for Lando Norris by default more than anything else. Pierre Gasly, let's have a little look at this replay where he went a little bit astray, just went a little too wide at turn 1. That's where the track limits violation was for the Frenchman, and yeah, it was pretty significantly off the racetrack. Lance Stroll has also had a lap time deleted, and Franco Colapinto has had both of his lap times deleted so far in this first qualifying session. Looking at Yuki Tsunoda, just losing a little bit of traction inside of that, and actually not very happy inside of that Red Bull car. Liam Lawson also complaining about Lewis Hamilton being in the way as he was making his way through the final sector. Liam Lawson actually all the way in 8th place at the moment, so still okay. Everybody back into the pits now. Hulkenberg and Bortoleto, the final 2 drivers out on the circuit, but Hulkenberg and Bortoleto making their way in. It's going to be 5 minutes left on the clock. Oh. I don't hate Lando, I just like Max more. Wow. Final 5 minutes of the session then. We do have all the drivers going out one last time, you would imagine. And Norris and Piastri actually wanting to be the first drivers out on track. Lando Norris first in the queue, Piastri second, and then it's a little bit of a malaise behind as the cars all trying to cut in and get their correct position. Nico Hulkenberg's, Gabriel Bortoleto's Sauber only just being pushed back into the garage. It's going to be a quick turnaround of tyres there for the Stake Sauber team, because everybody is slowing it down. Alex Albon in particular, leaving a big gap to Oscar Piastri ahead. Isaac Hadjar then doing the same. Everybody using this quite long pit exit that we have here in Abu Dhabi to just stretch out the amount of time ahead of them. Carlos Sainz now making his way out of the pits. Antonelli, Russell, Verstappen, Leclerc also in that little tunnel under turn 1. 3 minutes, 45 seconds left. Should be enough time for everybody to get round and have another go. But still waiting for a few drivers to make their way back out into the pit lane, if they are going to go again. Russell, Behrman, Piastri are top 3 at the moment. Verstappen and Hamilton just behind. Esteban Ocon, Alex Albon, Charles Leclerc, Pierre Gasly, and Franco Colapinto, the 5 drivers that desperately need to improve. 3 minutes left on the clock for everybody then. Tsunoda makes his way out of the pits as Lando Norris now starts his final flying lap of the session. Currently 7th fastest Lando Norris. Should be enough to get himself through, looking at the lap times of Ocon, Albon, Leclerc, Gasly behind, but we'll want to improve on that just a little bit. Is a touch slower than George Russell through the first sector, but is improving his lap time is Lando Norris. Oscar Piastri also worth having a little look at as he's dealing with Pierre Gasly at the moment, and Piastri actually does the fastest first sector of anybody so far, whilst also moving past Pierre Gasly. Running down towards turn 6 they come. Lando Norris using Yuki Tsunoda as a little bit of a draft maybe, and then getting that DRS wide open in his McLaren car. Still a 10th of a second or so off George Russell's lap time as he comes through the second part of the lap though, Lando Norris. Oscar Piastri, his teammate behind him. The fastest first sector has just gone to Carlos Sainz once again. The Williams car looking very competitive indeed, although Piastri has found a little bit more time in the second sector as well. He's now a 10th and a half up on George Russell through the middle part of the lap. Still the final sector to come, though, as Lando Norris's teammate comes across the line. Does go quickest of anybody, does Lando Norris, despite setting none of the fastest sector times. The overall lap is half a tenth of a second quicker than George Russell. Here comes Oscar Piastri around the final corner, and Piastri goes fastest by a long, long way. 5.5 tenths of a second for Oscar Piastri, and that is a statement lap from the Australian. Alex Albon comes across the line. He's only seventh fastest of anybody. Max Verstappen is improving through the first sector. Carlos Sainz, though, still quickest of anybody through that first part of the lap. Kimi Antonelli, the quickest driver through the middle sector. And Carlos Sainz is going to come across the line. Third fastest for the Williams team. Here comes Max Verstappen through the final sector. Let's keep an eye on Kimi Antonelli as he goes second fastest and splits the two McLaren cars for now. George Russell is also coming around the final part of the lap, although doesn't look like he's improving too much on his lap time. Stays fifth fastest as George Russell. Max Verstappen coming around the final corner. Quickest of anybody through the middle part of the lap, and second fastest overall to Oscar Piastri is Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc comes around and gets himself out of that bottom 5. He puts himself 4th, which does actually put Yuki Tsunoda down into that bottom 5. The Red Bull car coming around the final corner, improving and goes 10th fastest. Yuki Tsunoda will be safe there. Pierre Gasly is currently 19th fastest, coming around the final part of the lap. Lance Stroll also missing out in the middle sector as Lance Stroll didn't improve. Fernando Alonso looking better inside of that Aston Martin car. It is Stroll, Bortoleto, Ocon, Gasly, and Colapinto that need to improve. Here comes Gasly. It's good enough for 15th for now. That puts Nico Hülkenberg into that bottom 5. Here comes Lance Stroll, though. Can he get himself out of that bottom 5? Yes. Goes 10th fastest as Lance Stroll and takes the checkered flag. So Lance Stroll should be safe there. That means Gasly is going to be out of qualifying. Here comes Fernando Alonso, goes 4th fastest in the Aston Martin, just to show how much pace that Aston Martin car has got. Esteban Ocon is coming around the final sector as well. Hamilton too. It's going to be very tight. Bortoleto and Hülkenberg are still on flying laps behind as well. Bortoleto and Hülkenberg both improving. Hamilton and Tsunoda could be in a little bit of trouble here. Alex Albon has also taken the checkered flag and is going to be out. So Gasly, Albon and Colapinto confirmed out of qualifying. Lewis Hamilton looking to improve. Doesn't. Stays 15th. This could be another Hamilton disqualification. This could be another Hamilton dropping out of the top. Hülkenberg aborts. Bortoleto goes 14th fastest. So Bortoleto has dropped Hamilton into that bottom 5, and Hülkenberg can't improve. So Hülkenberg stays 18th fastest. But Lewis Hamilton is out once again. Yuki Tsunoda can breathe a big sigh of relief. Wow. Lewis Hamilton out again. I know he crashed in free practice 3, but really still not happy inside of that Ferrari car, and it is not the season end that Lewis Hamilton would have been hoping for after moving to Ferrari at the beginning of this season. It has been abysmal, it has been horrible, and Lewis Hamilton out in Q3 again. It's not even like it's becoming a pattern now for Lewis Hamilton. He is out in 16th place. Alex Albon dropped out in 17th. Wasn't expecting the Williams to drop down there, considering Carlos Sainz having some real joy inside of that Williams car this weekend. Nico Hülkenberg drops out in 18th place. Gasly and Colapinto, the two Alpine cars, just no pace at all inside of the Alpines. They're going to be last in the Constructors' Championship and also finish maybe last in this race as well. Skyfall in the background. Yeah, Lewis Hamilton is not going to finish this 2025 campaign having scored even a podium place for Ferrari. I mean, I know I'm going early with that. He might drive all the way from 16th up to 3rd, but Can anyone else see that happening? Considering how really struggling inside of that Ferrari car? I don't think so. I think Lewis Hamilton is on for an absolutely nightmare couple of hours come tomorrow afternoon. And yeah, a season to forget. A season to forget indeed. But the other side of that coin, we do have 15 drivers moving themselves up into Q2. An absolute statement lap from Oscar Piastri was 2.5 tenths quicker than anybody else inside of his McLaren car. Like, that is a very, very good lap from Oscar Piastri, a 122.6 at this point in qualifying. Max Verstappen, a 22.877, his closest competitor. If that's the top two come tomorrow, that could be very, very interesting indeed. Kimi Antonelli, third place. Fernando Alonso was fourth fastest. Charles Leclerc was fifth fastest. And we talked about before we started looking at the actual qualifying session, we sort of delved into this idea of could Antonelli, Leclerc, Russell kind of be in and amongst it. Fernando Alonso also slotting himself in there. So, like, not guaranteed for Lando Norris at this point, as he's down in sixth place. Maybe it was just being a little bit more cautious, making sure he absolutely guaranteed himself a spot in the second part of qualifying rather than pushing it to its absolute limits. Carlos Sainz is through, George Russell through in 8th place, Ollie Behrman in 9th place, and Liam Lawson, actually the better of the two RB cars. He was 10th fastest. It's Lance Stroll, Esteban Ocon, Isaac Hadjar, Gabriel Bortoleto, and Yuki Tsunoda, who are the 5 drivers in the firing line come Q2. They'll be the 5 drivers that absolutely need to improve if they want themselves, if they want to get themselves as part of the top 10 shootout. Can drivers use DRS during qualifying? Yes, of course. They can use DRS only during the DRS zones. So between turn 5 and turn 6, you can see that green kind of pattern across the racetrack. That's where they can use DRS. And then between turn 8 and turn 9 as well, they can open up the DRS here. So it's a lot of the middle sector, to be honest, most of the middle sector, apart from the chicane at turn 6 and turn 7, where they have got that DRS wide open inside of these Formula One cars. Of course, the last time we're going to see DRS, the end of DRS comes with the end of the 2025 campaign. 2026 cars are going to be very, very different. But we are seeing the cars for one last time with DRS open and running at one another. Piastri, please be champion tomorrow. At the moment, it's looking good. He needs himself to win. He needs Oscar Piastri to win, him being himself. And he needs Lando Norris to be P6 or lower. Look at the standings as they are right now. If we ended qualifying right here, you'd be a very happy Oscar Piastri fan. Let's just say that. But qualifying does not end here. We have got 15 minutes on the clock and a second qualifying round to set up the grid from P11 to P15, as 5 more drivers are going to drop out in this one. Could get worse for Lando Norris. Could get worse for Oscar Piastri. We don't know yet. And yeah, Lewis Hamilton still looking at a replay of him inside of that Ferrari car and just not happy at all inside of that Ferrari car. Lost it in free practice 3 into the wall. They had to restructure the front right-hand side of that Ferrari car, but it doesn't look like it's helped. And Lewis Hamilton dropping out in Q1 once again is the problem. Here we are then. The green flag is waved, and Max Verstappen has decided to be the first driver to get himself out on track. Max Verstappen, actually the only car to get himself out on track in this first minute of qualifying. Simply lovely, Max. Let's see what the lap time brings. He is out there all on his own, the current world champion, looking to match Michael Schumacher's record of winning 5 World Drivers' Championships in a row. Needs another World Championship win to do that. Currently has 4 in a row from 2021 all the way through 2022, the season where Red Bull really stepped up a gear. 2023, Max Verstappen absolutely dominated. 2024, he won it in the first half of the year, really, didn't he? Made sure that it was in the bag before the McLarens got better. And this year has been the complete reverse of that. Started the year really struggling inside that Red Bull car. The McLarens came out of the clappers absolutely flying. But over the second half of the season, Verstappen has slowly and quietly just been doing the business, gaining on the McLaren cars, and is now 12 points away from being a 5-time world champion. Here we are then. Max Verstappen's first flying lap comes through the first sector, 16.992. What's the difference between a green sector and a purple sector? Purple sector means it is the fastest of anybody so far. A green sector means that that driver has improved on that sector, but it's still not the quickest of anybody's. And then yellow sector means that that driver actually has done that sector faster in the past. So they haven't improved on that sector time. So often you're looking at lots of greens, a few purples here and there for certain drivers, and often, hopefully, not too many yellows. That's Verstappen coming around the final sector then. Had the track all to himself. Now has Ocon, Behrman, Lawson, Sainz, Antonelli, Hadjar, Russell, Stroll, Leclerc, Alonso around there with him. And it's a 22.912 from Verstappen. Not the worst in the world. That's Verstappen still pushing it, even on those used tyres. So slightly used set of soft compound tyres there for Max Verstappen. So keeping an eye on what tyre compounds everyone else decides to go for in this first run in Q2. Looking like quite a few scrubbed sets of softs. Piastri's on a scrubbed set of softs. Esteban Ocon, though, deciding on a fresh set of soft compound tyres. Ollie Behrman, his teammate behind him, on a scrubbed set of softs. So Behrman and Ocon behind in the Haas cars. Now on flying laps, Liam Lawson is just making his way around the final corner. So keep an eye on his lap time as well. Ollie Behrman through the first sector, a 1/10 of a second or so off of Max Verstappen's time. Carlos Sainz has been very quick in this first sector. Let's keep an eye on the Williams as he also comes through the first part of the lap. Just coming through turn 2 now on our screens. And Ollie Behrman coming through the middle part of the lap, looking very tidy indeed. Ollie Behrman's been great in the second half of the season. When the Haas car has been able to deliver pace, he's been right there. Carlos Sainz was quickest in the first part of the lap again until Kimi Antonelli has just gone purple through the first sector. Carlos Sainz is so quick through that first part of the lap. Just needs to also do it in the middle part of the lap and the final part of the lap as well. Antonelli, though, fastest of anybody so far. Keep an eye on Kimi Antonelli as he's coming through turn 6 and turn 7 right now. Esteban Ocon comes across the line 2.5 tenths slower than Verstappen on a fresh set of soft compound tyres, though, remember. And here comes Ollie Behrman, goes slower than his teammate, and by a considerable margin, actually, Ollie Behrman fell away quite substantially as the lap progressed. Kimi Antonelli not quite able to match Max Verstappen through the middle part of the lap. Carlos Sainz improving, though. Here comes Carlos Sainz's Williams car. And goes second fastest. Couple attempts to drift of Max Verstappen still, so Verstappen still with a couple of tenths in hand to the rest of the field as Antonelli then comes across the line. Only 4th fastest, was expecting a little bit more from the Italian there. Here comes Isaac Hadjar, 12th fastest at the moment, jumps to 4th fastest on track. George Russell has gone quicker than anybody else through the middle part of the track at 35.9 for Russell, and then goes quicker than anybody overall. He gains a couple of tenths of a second on Max Verstappen. So Russell now quickest, Verstappen second fastest of anybody. And as I said, could be another weekend where George Russell just ruins it for everybody else in the title battle. He's won a couple of races this year as George Russell. Fernando Alonso coming around the final corner. And 3rd fastest. Fastest final sector for Fernando Alonso. 0.3 of a second slower than George Russell, but both of the Aston Martins actually slotting into the top 4. Sainz, Ocon, Leclerc, Hadjar, Tsunoda, Antonelli. No longer, as Bortoletto goes 4th fastest and drops Antonelli into that bottom 5. So it is just Piastri and Norris who have not yet set a flying lap time. Piastri dominating the timesheets through Q1. Is he going to go for a similar thing in Q2? Is on a scrubbed set of soft compound tyres, has to be said, Piastri, and goes 3rd fastest. Final sector, best of the rest. And Lando Norris has come through the final sector as well, surely going to get himself out of that bottom 5 and does indeed go 2nd fastest as he takes the final sector fastest time as well. Max Verstappen is out once again. Verstappen now running around 3rd fastest on the timing sheets, but on a little bit of an offset is Verstappen compared to everybody else. On a fresh set of soft compound tyres? No, scrubbed set of soft compound tyres again for Max Verstappen, wanting to get an extra lap in compared to the other competitors inside of the top 10 then. And Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri also went on scrubbed sets of softs. George Russell was on a fresh set of soft compound tyres, so giving the Mercedes man a little bit of an edge, hence why he is top of the timing sheets for now. Fernando Alonso was also on a fresh set of soft compound tyres. And Max Verstappen comes across the line, 0.02 of a second slower than George Russell still. But again, on a scrubbed set of softs. So Verstappen still with a little more in the tank, you would have to imagine. Hadjar, Tsunoda, Antonelli, Behrman and Lawson, the 5 drivers in the bottom 5 at the moment. It's going to get very tight, isn't it? Hadjar, Tsunoda, Antonelli, Behrman and Lawson all feel like they've got the opportunity to improve. Tsunoda, Behrman and Lawson were all on scrubbed sets of softs as well. So Hadjar and Antonelli with maybe a little bit less pace than the other 3 in that bottom 5 to find. Oh my goodness, a Charles Leclerc with a little bit of a tank slapper around the final corner. Just had to catch the rear end of that car. Charles Leclerc, 10th fastest overall. His teammate Lewis Hamilton already out of qualifying. It was Hamilton, Albon, Hulkenberg, along with the 2 Alpines who dropped out in the first part of qualifying. Hadjar, Tsunoda, Antonelli, Behrman and Lawson looking like the drivers that are going to join them, unless they can improve in this final part of qualifying. Lando, no podium, please. Seems a little bit harsh. We're not even into the Q3 yet. If you're expecting Lando Norris to drop from 3rd to 11th in this final part of qualifying, I can't see it happening. He is within 1/10 of a second of George Russell's flying lap time and has yet to use a fresh set of soft compound tyres in this second part of qualifying. Everybody back into the pits then with 5 minutes to go on the clock, as we saw in Q1. Q2 with 4.5 minutes to go. I'm just wondering who's going to blink first. It's a little bit awkward because you want that extra bit of track development, especially between turn 1 and turn 3. The track has been relayed through those corners. So the extra little bit of grip that everybody is laying down with those tyres does help you. So you kind of want to go out as late as possible, but also you don't want to run into too much traffic and have to deal with other cars in front of you. And you don't want to risk coming across the start-finish line too late and waiting in the pits too long. Like, there's a lot of things that these teams have to really try and balance as they go out into this final run in qualifying 2. George Russell, the fastest man at the moment, 122.730. Verstappen, Norris, Piastri are 3 championship contenders in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place behind in that order. Fernando Alonso, best of the rest at the moment, inside of the top 5. Bortoleto, Stroll, Sainz, Ocon, and Leclerc currently safe and would be through to Q3, where Hadjar, Tsunoda, Antonelli, Behrman, and Lawson need to improve, whilst Hamilton, Albon, Hulkenberg, Gasly, and Colapinto do not get to take part as they are out in Q1. Charles Leclerc out on track first. Ferrari wanting to get the clean air on this warm-up lap for the Ferrari man. Tsunoda, Antonelli, Bortoleto behind. Sainz is the 5th car to come out onto the circuit. Lawson and Hadjar, the 2 RB cars, side by side behind. Ocon, Russell, Stroll, Alonso currently making their way out of the pits. And Behrman has just jumped in front of Piastri and Norris in terms of their spacing. Interesting that Russell has come back out, but Max Verstappen has not. So Verstappen in the pits thinks he is safe. And Verstappen is going to stay put for the final 2.5 minutes of Q2. George Russell currently fastest, but is back out on track once again on a scrubbed set of soft compound tyres, though. So Verstappen deciding he has done good enough. Norris and Piastri have also put on a fresh set of softs. That could be interesting. Max Verstappen holding on to a set of soft compound tyres where the McLarens have not. Charles Leclerc is on a flying lap and actually just making his way past those 2 McLarens, and it's a slow first sector from Charles Leclerc. Doesn't even improve on his own first sector time. It is a yellow first sector for Charles Leclerc. Yuki Tsunoda is improving through the first part of the lap, which is also not good news for the Ferrari man. Kimi Antonelli, though, struggling through the first sector as well. Those 3 drivers from some of the biggest teams on the grid, Ferrari, Red Bull, and Mercedes, all looking under pressure right now. Leclerc 10th fastest at the moment. Does improve through the middle part of the lap, Charles Leclerc, but not by too much. And Yuki Tsunoda also 12th. Antonelli 13th, both need to improve. And Yuki Tsunoda's just gone quickest of anybody through the middle sector. And Tsunoda is 4/10 up on Charles Leclerc's previous lap time through that middle part of the lap. So Yuki Tsunoda suddenly looking very comfortable indeed. Kimi Antonelli has improved through the middle part of the lap. A lot better from Antonelli through the middle sector compared to the first. Here comes Charles Leclerc to go 4th fastest in his Ferrari. Much better in the middle part of the lap and the final part of the lap in his Ferrari car. But here comes Yuki Tsunoda. Only goes 6th fastest. Wasn't an amazing final sector from the Japanese driver. Slots in behind Charles Leclerc, and Antonelli goes 8th fastest inside of his Mercedes car as well. Carlos Sainz is quickest of anybody through the first part of the lap. He's coming around the final sector now. He's in 11th right now and pushes Kimi Antonelli that step closer. Carlos Sainz goes 9th fastest. Isaac Hadjar is coming around the final sector next then. Liam Lawson comes across the line 10th fastest, so Kimi Antonelli is going to be out of qualifying. Kimi Antonelli drops into that bottom 5. Here comes Isaac Hadjar, improves, puts his teammate Liam Lawson down into the bottom 5. Esteban Ocon comes across the line and puts Carlos Sainz out of qualifying, so Sainz, Lawson and Antonelli will drop out of qualifying now. Fernando Alonso under pressure in 10th place is improving. Here comes Fernando Alonso then, the final man around the final couple of corners. Oh no, sorry, Ollie Behrman still on a lap behind him. Fernando Alonso improves to 4th fastest. Lance Stroll has taken the checkered flag, couldn't improve and stays where he was. Here comes Ollie Behrman, not quite good enough. And Yuki Tsunoda once again is the man right on the bubble. but sneaks his way through one more time. So it is Behrman, Sainz, Lawson, Antonelli, and Stroll, the 5 drivers that join Hamilton, Albon, Hulkenberg, Gasly, and Colapinto out of qualifying. Yuki Tsunoda, man, breathing multiple sighs of relief over the course of these 2 qualifying sessions. And Kimi Antonelli on the radio, not very happy with his car. It is incredibly tight. You look at the lap times there. So Yuki Tsunoda was 0.3 of a second slower than George Russell. Ollie Behrman, 0.3. Carlos Sainz, a 1,000th of a second slower than Ollie Behrman. Then you got 200 or 300ths of a second slower from Sainz to Lawson. Then a couple of hundredths again from Lawson to Antonelli. Like, they're all within a 1/10 of a second, even half a 1/10 of a second of one another. It is very, very tight in terms of getting yourself into Q3 or dropping out in Q2. But Behrman, Sainz, Lawson, Antonelli, and Stroll were those drivers that just missed out. And they are going to start in 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th place come tomorrow's Grand Prix. Titanium dioxide, unfortunately, illegal. Antonelli, 14th fastest overall. Antonelli got karma from hitting Tsunoda. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Obviously, they did collide in free practice 3 in the pit lane, though. It was a very low-speed collision between Antonelli and Tsunoda. Not really Antonelli's fault, more Antonelli's engineer's fault for letting him out of the garage whilst Yuki Tsunoda was making his way past. But Antonelli does drop out in 14th, where Yuki Tsunoda sneaks that Red Bull car into a Q10. And into a P10 and into Q3. Here we are then. It's the final countdown. Oscar Piastri absolutely dominated Q1, but was 8th fastest there in Q2 as the rest of the cars around him also improved. George Russell was the fastest man in his Mercedes car. A 122.730 from George. 22.752 was the closest from Max Verstappen. And Lando Norris also within a 1/10 of a second of top spot. So that top 3 within a 1/10 of a second of one another. Absolutely electric going into the final part of qualifying. Fernando Alonso was 4th fastest, Gabriel Bortoleto 5th fastest, Charles Leclerc 6th, Isaac Hadjar 7th, Oscar Piastri, our other championship contender, down in 8th place. And then Esteban Ocon 9th and Yuki Tsunoda 10th. But it is insane to see, like, if we look at Isaac Hadjar in 7th place down to 15th place Lance Stroll, they were within a 1/10 of a second of one another. That's how, like, over the course of this season, qualifying has just gotten closer and closer and closer and closer. Like, ridiculous how close these cars are now, and just the smallest of margins being the biggest of differences. Like, Lance Stroll gains a 1/10 of a second there. He's 7th fastest rather than 15th fastest, and that makes such a massive difference to his race tomorrow as well. Like, it is insane how close these qualifying sessions are, but makes for very entertaining watching as we go into the final part of qualifying, where we have a top 10 and any of these drivers within contention of picking up a pole position for their team. Behrman, Sainz, Lawson, Antonelli, Stroll, the 5 drivers that dropped out in Q2. For those of us that are just joining the stream now, Lewis Hamilton, Alex Albon, Nico Hulkenberg, Pierre Gasly, and Franco Colapinto, the drivers that dropped out in the first part of qualifying. And Isaac Hadjar, that is all the time he's got. And his engineer letting him know that he is through and safe. And he is very happy about that indeed, as he should be. Isaac Hadjar, very much enthusiastic about his final race with Racing Bulls. Of course, moving up into the top team next year. But Isaac Hadjar wanting one final swan song in his first and final season in the Racing Bulls team. Max DNF. I mean, not looking likely at the moment. Max Verstappen looking very quick indeed. Didn't even use a fresh set of soft compound tires, did Max Verstappen, and still managed to make his way through without going out with the rest of the pack in the final 5 minutes of that qualifying session. Russell, though, right in the mix to ruin the day of Max Verstappen or make the day of Lando Norris, depending on which side of the coin you're sitting. Alonso in 4th place, also in the mix. Thank you to all the new subscribers, trying to hit 150,000 subscribers before the end of the season, which is tomorrow. So if you have not subscribed to the channel, we are just under 1,000 subscribers away from hitting that goal. It's going to be very difficult, but if everybody hits that subscribe button, we could get very, very close indeed to getting that 150,000 subscribers before the end of the year. George won Vegas the same time Max became world champion. Ooh. I mean, Max Verstappen to finish P2 tomorrow and still become world champion would mean an absolute nightmare for Lando Norris, who is currently 3rd fastest of anybody. But you never know. You never know, especially down in towards turn 1 tomorrow. Could get very competitive between them, couldn't it? Maybe just mix up the order a touch. Also, if you're over on Twitch, thank you for joining us. If you could hit the follow button, we're trying to hit 750 followers over on Twitch before the end of the season. We're on like 740 at this point in time. And also, if you've got your Twitch Prime, you can join the channel and subscribe to the Twitch completely and utterly for free. Or you can become a member on the YouTube channel, which is well worth it. You get an additional stream after every single race weekend where we just chat about the biggest news stories from the championship battle, usually. And this weekend, the post-race stream could be very good or very bad for me. So worth becoming a member to the channel and supporting the stream just to see that post-race stream after tomorrow's Grand Prix. But before we get to the Grand Prix, we have got one final run in qualifying. The top 10 out on track for one last time to set the standard before tomorrow. Tsunoda is the first man to come out of the pits. He is ahead of Verstappen. He's also coming out early. Verstappen really wanting to get out on the racetrack before anybody else, it seems. Bortoleto, Ocon, Hadjar, Norris also making their way down the pit lane. Alonso and Leclerc as well. Oscar Piastri is still inside of the McLaren garage, so Piastri deciding that he wants to go out last of anybody by the looks of things. George Russell also sitting inside of the garage for now. Again, George Russell here could just be that nail in the coffin for one of these championship competitors. Piastri does now leave the McLaren garage. George Russell still yet to blink inside of his Mercedes car. So it is Tsunoda, Verstappen, Bortoleto who are out on track. Ocon, Hadjar, Norris, who are just entering the chicane down in towards turn 6. And Alonso and Leclerc, who have just made their way through the first sector. Oscar Piastri just making his way out of the tunnel. And George Russell really is going to go when everybody else is already gone. George Russell only just leaving the Mercedes garage now. Yuki Tsunoda, though, is going to be the first man to set a flying lap. As Tsunoda comes around turn 16, let's see what he's got. He's managed to sneak his way through in Q1 and Q2. Tsunoda was 15th fastest in Q1, 10th fastest in Q2. Literally snuck through both times. But he's here now, and Yuki Tsunoda has the chance to imitate what Sergio Perez did 4 years ago in 2021 and help Max Verstappen to win a world championship. Sergio Perez defending for his life, holding up Lewis Hamilton throughout that middle stint of the race. Yuki Tsunoda now the man beside Max as Verstappen goes quicker than his teammate through the first part of the lap. Gabriel Bortoleto, a 17.0 through the first sector. Esteban Ocon, a 17.1. So Bortoleto outdoing Esteban Ocon for now. Yuki Tsunoda actually very slow through the first sector, a 17.5 for the Japanese driver. Does make you wonder if Yuki Tsunoda is just kind of bursting a hole for Max Verstappen to run into. As Yuki Tsunoda looks like he's also going to move out of the way of Max Verstappen. He was definitely just giving his teammate a slipstream there, Yuki Tsunoda. And Max Verstappen, a 35.7 through the middle part of the lap. So Yuki Tsunoda just doing Max Verstappen as big a favor as possible. George Russell having to move out of the way of the Dutchman. Lando Norris is slower than Verstappen through the first part of the lap. Fresh soft compound tyres on Max Verstappen's car as well. I think Verstappen trying to just get this done sooner rather than later. Comes across the start-finish line, a 122.295. That is very quick from Max Verstappen, as Lando Norris is finding out as he does not match Max Verstappen through the middle part of the lap either. Needs to be a very solid final sector if Lando Norris is going to jump to the top of this timing sheet. Bortoleto, second fastest. Esteban Ocon was third fastest until Isaac Hadjar just displaced Esteban Ocon. Lando Norris is the next driver to come across the start-finish line, and Lando Norris goes second fastest, but by 4.5 tenths of a second. Is on scrubbed set of soft compound tyres, though. So Lando Norris needs a fresh set of softs and a new idea to get himself above Max Verstappen. Oscar Piastri coming around the final sector right now has also not been able to match Max Verstappen in the first two sectors. Yuki Tsunoda bursting that hole in the air for Max Verstappen to run into. Down towards turn 6 and then down towards turn 9 again. Clearly paying dividends as Piastri goes quicker than his teammate by a tenth of a second, but still 3 tenths off Max Verstappen's fastest lap time. Here comes George Russell then. Russell yet to set a flying lap time. Yuki Tsunoda also peeled into the pits. Verstappen, Piastri, Norris are top 3, whereas Russell going to slot himself only 5th. Only 5th, George Russell, and he was fighting that Mercedes car pretty tough. And Leclerc and Russell were actually on fresh sets of soft compound tyres, so looking good. If you're a Lando Norris fan right now, all he needs to do is finish inside of the top 3, even if Verstappen and Piastri are ahead of him. Lando Norris, third fastest, and that will do on a scrubbed set of soft compound tyres. Max Verstappen, pole position for now inside of the Red Bull car. And oh my goodness me, George Russell nearly doing a Nicholas Latifi through the final sector. Getting all out of shape through turn 14. Catches it before hitting the wall, and 5th fastest overall. Bortoleto was 6th, Alonso 7th, Hadjar 8th, Ocon 9th, and Yuki Tsunoda did not set a flying lap time. He was just there to help out Max Verstappen as much as humanly possible, and he's helped him out a considerable amount as both of the McLaren cars need to find 3 tenths of a second in the case of Piastri and 5 tenths of a second, 4.5 tenths in the case of Lando Norris. And Norris actually got all out of shape through turn 16 on the entry to his flying lap. So Lando Norris knew that it was kind of over before it started in terms of his first flying lap of this final qualifying session. Ooh, it's getting tense. I'm starting to get a little bit more nervous than I was earlier on in the weekend. And everybody makes their way back into the pits as George Russell is the final car to join the group. Russell then 5th fastest. Okay, here we go. Final 5 minutes of the session. And as we saw in Q1 and Q2, everyone's just going to wait a little bit. Yuki needs to lock in and get P2. Depends what Red Bull do here. Do Red Bull use Yuki again as a little bit of a sacrificial lamb to get Max Verstappen's lap time up? Or do they try and use Verstappen to maybe help Tsunoda and hope that that 122.295 is good enough from Verstappen to maintain pole position? And then, as you say, try and get Yuki Tsunoda up into second place or third place to then maybe lunge at Lando Norris tomorrow. And then Tsunoda, yeah, you can the lap time from Yuki Tsunoda was nowhere, and as you can hear from the radio messages, Yuki Tsunoda was indeed just playing the toe for Max Verstappen, literally told to look in his mirrors, play the toe, and make sure he gets out of the way at the right time. So Verstappen, looking like that will be good enough for pole position, really, because as I say, Piastri and Norris need to find over 0.3 of a second and over 0.4 of a second to find a pole position time. Charles Leclerc's fourth fastest at the moment is within 0.5 of a second of Lando Norris's P3 time. So Max Verstappen needs a Ferrari or a Mercedes to also help him out, or possibly even his teammate, as Yuki Tsunoda is going to be the first man out of the pits. And George Russell saying, try and get me behind Verstappen on his in-lap. He'll probably give me a tow. He's not wrong, is George Russell. And Russell also playing the little tactical game here. He knows that he knows that Max Verstappen needs a Mercedes or a Ferrari to help him out here. And George Russell wants to go with Max Verstappen on this one. George Russell, very good friends with Lando Norris, it has to be said. But as soon as the racing helmet goes on, he is a different beast entirely. Nobody is friends once they're out on the racetrack. Tsunoda was first out onto the track, and actually Max Verstappen nowhere to be seen. So Tsunoda is going to actually get a flying lap time in. The Japanese driver squeaked through. And now we'll see where he really lands inside of this top 10. Esteban Ocon, the second car behind him. Bortoleto will be third across the start-finish line. Alonso fourth. Hadjar fifth. Charles Leclerc is then behind Isaac Hadjar. Piastri and Norris have come out together. And then Max Verstappen is going to come out just ahead of George Russell. So George Russell is indeed behind Max Verstappen, but by a considerable margin. And I'm not sure Max Verstappen will give George Russell a slipstream from there. Here we go then. Yuki Tsunoda coming around the final corner. This is it, ladies and gentlemen. 2 minutes between the start of the Formula One Abu Dhabi Grand Prix grid being set. Yuki Tsunoda comes across the start-finish line, round turn 1, turn 2, and turn 3. Let's see what this first sector time is like for Tsunoda. It's a 16.989 from Tsunoda, which is not too shabby at all. Esteban Ocon is also on a flying lap behind. Here comes Gabriel Bortoleto. Fernando Alonso has started his flying lap as well. Isaac Hadjar coming around turn 16 now. Piastri and Norris are side by side in 14, 13, and 12. Max Verstappen just coming into the final sector. Same with George Russell behind. Yuki Tsunoda coming through the final sector now. And the middle part of the lap is a 35.9 from Yuki Tsunoda. So looking decent. Verstappen just backing up the pack a little bit here. George Russell still behind him. Tsunoda's going to run into the back of the Mercedes car, which is going to be the only thing that puts off the Japanese driver through that final sector. Piastri and Norris, though, now starting their flying laps. Piastri through the first sector. It's a little bit slower than Verstappen still, but is within 0.1 of a second of the Dutchman's flying lap time. Lando Norris comes through the first sector. Again, is within touching distance, but just that little bit slower. It's 0.5 of a second between Piastri, Norris, and Verstappen's flying lap time, as Max Verstappen then goes even quicker than himself through the first part of the lap. Verstappen goes purple, and George Russell then behind Max Verstappen can't go quite as quick as the Red Bull car, but is also right in the mix with Norris and Piastri's time. So George Russell improving as well. I know the other midfield cars coming across the line. Alonso's just gone 6th fastest. Hadjar is coming across the line next. But we are looking at Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, and Lando Norris really Norris is a 10th or so off Verstappen's fastest time through the middle sector, so Norris needs to find something as Verstappen goes even quicker again through the middle sector. Max Verstappen is finding lap time even without a little bit of a tow from his teammate. Here comes Oscar Piastri, improves but stays second fastest. He's a 10th and a half off Max Verstappen's time. Charles Leclerc has actually snuck ahead of Lando Norris, but Norris comes across the line to go second fastest of anybody and ahead of his teammate, crucially, for the start of tomorrow's Grand Prix. Max Verstappen comes across the line, stays fastest of anybody. Of course, he was already quickest and improves his lap time to be even quicker. And George Russell, fourth fastest. So it is the two McLaren cars behind Max Verstappen, with Russell and Leclerc fourth and fifth, Fernando Alonso sixth, Bortoletto seventh, Ocon down in 8th, Hadjar 9th, and Yuki Tsunoda was down in 10th place. Tsunoda actually didn't set a flying lap time, must have made a mistake somewhere. I wasn't watching Yuki Tsunoda's lap times. Apologies if you're a Yuki Tsunoda fan. I don't know what happened there. But Max Verstappen is indeed the pole sitter once again in Abu Dhabi. And says a yes, lovely over the radio to the team. Very happy indeed. We'll take that one to the bank. And we'll start tomorrow's Grand Prix at the front of the pack. As it stands, though, Lando Norris in second place would still win the Drivers' Championship from that position. Oscar Piastri in third place needs a quite dramatic swap around. And George Russell in fourth place could be the real winner or loser in this one for Max Verstappen, really. Verstappen needs Lando Norris to drop 2 positions in tomorrow's Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc is there in 5th place for Ferrari, which, considering Lewis Hamilton dropped out in 16th, is very impressive. Then Fernando Alonso in 6th, Bortoletto 7th, Ocon 8th, Hadjar 9th, and Yuki Tsunoda will start in 10th place for Red Bull, but I'm sure will play his tactical role for tomorrow. Ollie Behrman was 11th fastest overall today. Sainz, Lawson, Antonelli and Stroll joining him out in Q2. They start in 12th place down to 15th. And Lewis Hamilton was the first driver to drop out in Q1. He will start 16th on the grid tomorrow, while Lewis Hamilton, Alex Albon will start 17th, Nico Hülkenberg 18th. And the final row of the grid will see the 2 Alpine cars side by side with Pierre Gasly and Franco Colapinto. There we have it, ladies and gentlemen, our 20 drivers for the final race of the 2025 season, the final race of this campaign, where 3 drivers can still be crowned world champion. Max Verstappen takes first blood with pole position, but Lando Norris is right there behind him. It could all happen tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss it, and I will see you there.